Hi everyone, welcome to Living Histories May 2025 edition. It's such a super honor and pleasure to launch into this edition right away with Professor Zemer Gitai's talk from Princeton. Zemer, please tell us about Living Many Histories.
All right, thank you, Sri. It's an honor to speak to the community. Also, I feel like we'd be remiss if we weren't acknowledging that right now is probably the biggest challenge to science in the U.S. In a very long time, and it's especially challenging for young people and people in transitions. It's challenging for all of us, and just want students to know that you're not alone. We know how hard it is. We are doing what we can. That's limited, but together we can do even more. And so we're with you. We stand with you. And if we can help you, let us know. Reach out. And please do reach out to your representatives because there's really nothing more important that we can do right now. So I was asked to talk about me and my living history. So I feel like we need to start with where I am now. So I am a microbiologist with interest in using biophysical approaches to think about bacterial problems across length scales. So we think all the way from how a single atom, a single methyl group on an antibiotic can change how it affects a bacterium, all the way to meter scale problems of host pathogen interaction and colonization. Really, what I really think of myself more as is just the person who knows a lot about bacteria that actually enjoys talking to physicists and engineers, and who usually I think that they like to talking to me as well, and that's really been the core of my career over the last 20 years. And so that's where we are. The other thing that's super important is, I'm sure everybody will emphasize this because it's so true, is that we say we a lot, and it's really the great joy of being an academic is getting to work with amazing people. And my lab is incredible. I work with a lot of different communities, but it's really the people that I see every day that make me excited to go into work every single day. And so I want to thank them. They've been amazing over the years. This is pictures of the lab over the years, and we've faced adversity before. This is a picture of a lab party during the pandemic, we can get through hard things together. In addition to my lab, the other community that I am privileged to interact with a lot is the community at Princeton, the kind of quantitative science community. And what's really been fun is that my lab sits right here, and we're really surrounded by chemistry, physics, computer science, math, really there's almost no hall that we go through that we don't manage to infect, bad pun intended, the bacteria into the thinking. And so it's really been great working with all of these people and how they've embraced these bacterial problems that we've studied. All right, so this is supposed to be living history, not living present. And so where did we start? And so, of course, I have to start with my parents. My parents are both born in Israel, and they were both humanities lecturers. And so I really learned from them at a very early age that math and numbers are not important, which of course I rejected, but that books and thinking are, and also more importantly, that it's okay to think hard about something just because you're really interested in it. And I think they really embodied that, and they really went after things that they were excited about, even if they were mostly just exciting to them. And I really admire them for that and appreciate everything that they did for me growing up to help me pursue my interests and my passions. As lecturers that weren't on the tenure track, they moved around a lot, which meant, of course, I moved around a lot too. And so we never really lived in the same place more than a few years. And that was a challenge. And I think, of course, we all either embrace or reject our past, I think. And so for me, it was a little bit of a push against that. So I have actually made very few stops in my academic life. I think perhaps as a result, I went to college. Then I spent 9 years in the Bay Area in graduate school, and then I have now spent almost 20 years at my first and only job here in New Jersey. I've really enjoyed it. So I think that's been a nice thing. Um, When we think about the academic journey, for me, it really actually started in high school with something really simple that I don't know why is not done much more, is that I had a fantastic biology teacher in ninth grade who did this journal club, she called it, very sophisticated. She would have us read these kind of pop science articles. In this case, it was a Scientific American story, and we'd present them to the class. And for me, I did this one on how animals survive freezing. And what was amazing to me is that they could have a very simple molecular scale explanation for this like large animal scale phenomenon. And I was blown away by this new discovery and the idea that something new was discovered. And I immediately was like, oh, I had an aha moment. I want to do that. And I want to find something new that nobody else in the world knew. And that's really, I think, been kind of true ever since ninth grade. And as an undergrad and as a PhD student, I had fantastic mentors. They were really amazing in many ways. I learned so much from them. And one of the things I really appreciate them is that they gave me the space to fail. A lot of things didn't go well as an undergrad and in grad school. And I really learned a lot. And I think I'm a much, much better scientist today because I managed to fail so much and then learn from my failures. One of the things I did learn, though, is that it's okay to not love everything and to lean into the things that you do enjoy. And so what I figured out was that I worked on mice as an undergrad, and then I worked on these very tiny neuronal processes in C. elegans, and really was interested in the quantitative aspects of the cell biology of actin signaling in axon guidance. And what I found was that the simpler the system was, the more fun I found it. And so that was something that I took forward. And so when I went to do a postdoc, I went to try to find the simplest cellular system that I could. And that drew me to working with Lucy Shapiro at Stanford. And Lucy has just been an unbelievable mentor. Here she is with my parents at my wedding. And with her, I really learned so much about how to dissect a problem, how to present a problem, how to contextualize, and how to choose a problem. And that was really amazing. And she was incredible. And one of the things that she did is I saw her give this talk back in 2001. Hard to believe. So almost 25 years ago, that she really started with very deep expertise and then really studied basic questions, but then was very open to the unexpected. And so when we made an unexpected discovery, she would then be able to really exploit that in all these amazing, both applied and basic ways. And she mentored people incredibly well and really made an impact, started a company, made a lot of money. So she really kind of did all these things, but it all started from this very foundational interest in basic science. And I found that very inspiring. Upon moving to Princeton in 2005, I was very lucky that literally my next door lab neighbor, right across the hall there, was Ned Wingreen, who's a theorist that many of you may know. And we've started this breakfast thing where literally every week or two we have breakfast and talk about science. And it's been this unbelievable journey of really thinking about how to apply physics to these problems in a way that for me has been really just revolutionary for me in my life. And the other thing that's great about working with great people is that they in turn recruit other great people. And so we've mentored a whole set of, close to 10 different people. And now we've brought in so many other people from other fields to work with us, colleagues as well. And so this group keeps expanding and has been just so much fun. And so if you can find a science buddy, I highly recommend it. It makes work so much fun. And so what have we done? So we really started by thinking about how the cytoskeleton affects growth. And to that, we really needed small molecules to really quickly and rapidly perturb them. And that let us really start to understand how these polymers assemble and how they affect things like shape, metabolism, growth, but also how they affect things like how bacteria colonize their environments, which in turn got us thinking about how they sense their environments and the mechanics around them, which in turn helped us think about how the host really is a mechanical environment that hadn't been appreciated as such, and thinking then about how do we actually now design back to molecules that actually perturb these infections in a real context, which has actually now recently led to two companies that are really doing exciting things with these tools that we've developed. And so this was sort of the path of how we started with these very simple ideas, and now have gone to like all these different scales that I told you about. And so it's not sort of random that we do this. There really is kind of some method to this madness, but it's been really exciting along the way. And again, what's really driven everything is these people that I've had the pleasure of mentoring, and I really appreciate them most first and foremost. And so with that, I'll just end and say thank you for listening, and I hope your own paths get to be told soon.
Wow. Thank you, Zemer. On behalf of the audience, I am clapping um, and want to invite the audience to send me questions via chat. And let me get started with a question myself. Would you please expand a little bit more on how your early childhood experiences, informed by your parents being humanities professors, actually influence the kinds of problems you choose now and the approaches you take to answering them?
That's an interesting question I haven't thought much about. So thank you, Sri, for pushing me a little. Well, so one thing that's very clear that doesn't quite answer your question, but I think is true, is that uh, my father in particular is interested in rhetoric. And so this idea of how we actually talk and how we present, and the impact that it can have, and the ability to connect or communicate, that's something that they both really thought quite a lot about. My mom as well. She was interested in when one paints a painting, one chooses all sorts of elements of the story that aren't there. Like if you're painting a biblical story, it doesn't say what the weather was, what were people wearing, and yet the artist has to make these choices, and that really makes a profound impact on how we interpret what we see. And so I think those sorts of ideas really came deep. I think the other thing was just the idea that there is a lot of information out there, and they were always in a library, buried somewhere in some deep recess. And the idea that historical, that we are building on that historical foundation, I think is really important. Something that I think a lot about. I'd say more philosophically, I have to maybe sleep on that, but I thank you for the question.
My pleasure. Another question following up on something you said on one of your slides, the experience of doing a super fancy journal club presentation.
In high school, yes, exactly.
Yes. And in that context, you emphasize the importance of amazing mentors and teachers. How does this influence your own time balance between different aspects of your job?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, first of all, I think that it makes me think a lot about the idea of just exposure, in the sense that I didn't think I was going to be a scientist. It wasn't something that wasn't on my radar in high school, but it was really just taking a class and being exposed to things that I wasn't exposed to at home. That was really important. I think about that a lot in terms of when we think about who is represented in science. It's often who is exposed to science and who even knows that science as a research is an option or something. And so that's, I think, really motivated a lot of the outreach efforts that we do. In terms of the mentorship, I think that is probably motivated underneath by my early experiences, but it's also by my day-to-day experiences. I've been lucky enough to be doing this for a long time now, and I can tell you that I don't really find myself dwelling so much on, or even deriving that much satisfaction from specific papers or discoveries that we made. I think the accumulated body, yes, but what I do think a lot about and find a huge amount of satisfaction is watching the trajectories of the people that I've mentored over the past. So, there's 14 people from my lab are now running their own labs, and I get to see them doing things. And some of them have started companies, and some of them are writers. Some of them are doing amazing things in public policy. It's watching them grow, and that is so gratifying, that then also that changes my calculation of how to spend my time today, that I am excited to work with the people that I work with every day because I know that I'm going to get to see the amazing things that they're going to do in the future. And so that's something that I think has stayed with me.
Wow. On that very inspiring note, thank you again, Zimmer. And I'm closing the recording in the interest of